So thank you for those of you on the bridge right now with us. We are excited to basically welcome Mandy Huth, who is the VP of Cybersecurity for Kohler. This is the SIM Women PDX lunch series. So every few months, we try and host an inspirational speaker or a panel that really takes on the how of the diversity conversation. So there's a lot of people talking about the why, and a lot of times you'll listen to diversity panels and you'll hear a very similar talk track. And what we recognized as a committee was about a year ago that no one was really getting into the nuts and the bolts of how do you actually do that. And there's really no one path either, right? So we're trying to bring diverse perspectives, diverse stories of inspiration so that people can get a sense of like, how do I actually start this? Where would I start? Or if you're more mature, what might be something else to add? So we're very grateful to have Mandy join us. And on that note, I'm going to transition really quickly into a brief intro. If you didn't get a chance to see her bio or you registered a month ago, forgot some of the highlights. She's currently the VP of Cybersecurity at Kohler. She's navigated a cyber career over the past few decades with companies like Kohler, Smarsh, Belden, and Tripwire. You'll recognize some of those as Portland companies. Mandy used to be located in the Northwest. That's where she met Jennifer, who referred her into us, and now she is basically based in Wisconsin. So she moved closer to the North Pole. It's cold. What's interesting about her career is she started as a Spanish major, right? Worked for the Department of Labor, and then transitioned quickly into operations, IT, and then rolled cybersecurity into that. So it's a very interesting path into cybersecurity. She also has a very unconventional way that she addresses leadership. So we're really excited to kind of listen to some of her insights. And on that note, what I'd love to do, Mandy, is just kind of start with maybe you sharing some of those career highlights that you have that you think were critical to your path of ending up in leadership in cybersecurity.
Sure. So as I mentioned, for those that weren't on the call, quality, not quantity. I don't care how many people are actually here. If you don't ask me questions at the end, I don't feel like this is a successful use of my time. So somebody, please plan on asking a question or two. Don't make one up. I mean, really think about what I can help with. So Mandy Huth, that's me. As I mentioned in the prequel, is, I'm a little bit of a wallflower, as you can tell. I love people, and my career has certainly been very, very untraditional. I originally thought I was going to be, and we'll talk a little bit about why this is, but I thought I was going to be the first female president of the United States. And then when I got to college, I said, no, because the first female president will probably be assassinated. So I don't want to do that. And so I ended up kind of feeling my way around, ended up as a Spanish major. And the reason that is, again, it goes back to quality. I had to test out of one class. And during that class, this little firecracker Puerto Rican teacher said, you're really good at this. You need to take an upper level course and just try it out. I said, okay, let's do it. And I fell in love. I found I was passionate about it. I loved to learn it. And I had a proclivity for it. And you're going to find that's a theme throughout my life. And we're going to talk about like self-awareness. And I was like, oh, like, I like this. So why not do that? Why shouldn't I do that? And again, liberal arts, I could have been a business major. My thought process was, okay, I could be a business major with a Spanish minor, but wherever I go in terms of business, they're going to want to teach me the business the way they run it. And then they're going to still have to teach me Spanish. But if I flip those around and say, I'm going to be a Spanish major and I'm going to have a business minor and I'm going to understand the fundamentals of business, then I've got enough to walk into a company and say, and I'm fluent and I can add value to you in a way that not everyone can, right? So that's how it all started. As Sasha said, I went to the Department of Labor. And then I said, if I'm going to go to this school area that I went to, I'm going to work for Procter & Gamble. And at that place, it was really about getting my foot in the door. I didn't have to get in the big leagues, if you will. And when I got there, I found out, I got addressed. I started working in the benefits center, and we were rolling out SAP. the R, if you guys remember the R3 module, and all the HR stuff. And I found out, oh, I get process, I get this. And all of a sudden I was a process leader. And then they're like, oh, we're moving our summary plan descriptions onto the intranet, but we'll teach you how to HTML code, but we need you to do this. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. I can do that. So we started doing that. And then I found out, oh, I'm pretty good at this. I know how to do reader variables. And all of a sudden I'm asking the database people, hey, why do you have to restart the database for me? Why can't I? Like, why does it have to go to you? And so I started doing that. And so what I found was it became additive, right? And I was just following this natural path. I didn't have to have everything figured out. And at that point, we got it out into the intranet, and I was really good at this intranet thing. And then we were doing a whole redo of the Procter & Gamble intranet. We actually were ranked 8th in Nielsen's the year that we did this for usability. And so I got certified in usability and user experience. And it was like, hey, imagine a technical world that makes sense to consumers. And so I really liked that. So, I can tell you all about these different things, but I found out I really like IT. I'm pretty decent at it. I can learn it pretty quickly. And I was at Tripwire, and one of our vice presidents left the company, and he was the VP of IT. And I went to the CFO and said, hey, don't replace him. You already have 2 senior leaders running half of your IT organization. All that's missing is security. Let me do that. And I, because it was already kind of part of my job. If you're in infrastructure, right, you're doing the patching, you're doing the configuration changes, you're making sure all of these things work. And so they gave that to me, and that's where I fell in love. So you can say, it's very untraditional. I loved the work that I did at Tripwire, acquired by Belden, completely built out a brand new security organization for Belden. Really enjoyed doing that. It was a little different than just the operational stuff. And then I went to Smarsh and loved Smarsh. I had the opportunity to give them some, the ability to what I'll call like being pre-approved for a mortgage. We were going for FedRAMP certification, which is a security certification and kind of clearance to do business with the government. And that was eye-opening and new. And then, I love Portland. Just so you all know, Portland is my home. Miss you guys so much. But why not Kohler? $8 billion in revenue. And we can talk about why data is important to them, because people are like, don't you make toilets? Well, yeah. But did you know that we build generators for data centers? Do you know that we have 6 golf courses, 7 spas, and a whole slew of food and wine options, right? Restaurants. So our hospitality arm's pretty big too. So lots of fun stuff here. Love my job. Who knew that the Spanish major, que habla español, also speaks security?
Awesome. So Mandy, when we talked, right, I mean, clearly you embrace change and you see opportunity and you have no fear of taking that. Can you talk a little bit? Because you had mentioned in our initial conversation about the fact that your mother, right, had a lot of influence on you in regards to being willing to take risk. I think in past sessions, we've talked about women from a psychology perspective, not necessarily being as comfortable as men are in regards to risk, and feeling like they have to have all the knowledge before they enter into or say, hey, what about me doing this job? So could you maybe make some comments around your childhood and the impact that your mom had on you personally, as well as in your career?
Absolutely. So there's 2 stories I want to tell you. The first is I'm going to tell you the story of Mandy with a single mom who told her that she could do anything she wanted to do. And I believed her every single time. And did we always get it right? Nope. Sorry, my son is traveling to Canada. I had to make sure he's okay. So anyway, he's okay. Sorry for the interruption. And so my mom always said, you can do anything you want to do. And she believed in me and made it possible. And as a single mom, right, it was, Mandy, nobody's going to do this for you. you have to know how to, clear the dishwasher. You have to know how to change a light switch. And I know how to strip wires, and I know how to use a drill press. And, like, these are things that, again, traditional, non-traditional, that was the way it was. If we wanted something done, we were, relatively modest income, low income as a single mom. And so, we had to depend on ourselves, and she believed in me. Now, the second story of this, I was at Kohler, and I was having a conversation with one of my female counterparts, someone that I mentor. And she's like, Mandy, you're always so courageous. Why, I can't, how do you do that? And I was like, because what's the worst that could happen? What's the absolute worst that could happen? I could not get it right. Okay. But her mother had brought her up in a way that, do you have to go there? Do you have to travel by plane? Can you travel by train? Very risk, averse and very conservative. And so I go back to, this isn't, I can say it's simple, but it's not easy, because the way we're raised and the way that our minds are wired at this point, it can be really hard to break out of that. Really, really hard. I was told you can do anything, and I believed it. She was told, be careful, be careful, be careful. And she believes it. And so my advice to you is, be self-aware, take a minute to reflect. Neither of them is wrong, but what's the worst that could happen? What's the absolute worst that could happen? And, I know that's a scary proposition, and people are in different places in their lives, but okay. So I screwed that up, raise my hand. What did I learn? Let's try again. Right. I swung and I missed a lot, but when I got it right, man, it feels really good when you get a double in the baseball field, right? Like, it's like, I didn't just get on base, I got a double, right? Or, I just needed to get on base this time. It doesn't have to be the big thing. It can be, I did that and I was courageous, and, and it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. It can be small steps, but believe you can do it. I believe you can do it. I think women are amazing.
Well, and I think to your point, right? I mean, you clearly have people like the great Wayne Gretzky, right? He's like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That gets quoted all the time. To your point, I think women are always like, and in fairness, we've been measured differently, right? But so there is a lot of hesitation. But to your point, what I found is that now when I enter projects, I basically talk about the lessons that can be learned, as well as what success might look like, because oftentimes you are walking into uncharted territory, right? So there needs to be some expectation that there's going to be some stumbles that happen. So,
and Sasha, I'm gonna mention that to you. One of the things that I'm gonna add on to what you just said around expectations is you're allowed to set them. And what I mean by that is, I don't wait for somebody to tell me what success looks like. I tell them what I think success looks like. And we don't always match, but my boss and we don't always agree. I'm like, but isn't this success too? And, again, I'm very fortunate. Well, I don't say, yes, I'm fortunate to have a great boss, but I made sure I had a great boss. I didn't go somewhere where we didn't mesh, or that I didn't have the support that I needed. And again, I know not everybody's in that situation, but if you're not, think real hard about looking for somewhere where you will be. I know it's risky, it's scary, but I'm getting down to the pins and needles of it, man. It's going to give you goosebumps, and I think you can do it. If you really want to do it, you can make it work.
So outside of what you mentioned, which is, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Because that alone can shut people down. Are there any other like techniques or things that you have done or helped people think about, right, to prepare? Because I think the big challenge is when risk shows up, oftentimes people aren't prepared mentally, right? So they don't jump on it, right? Versus if you think about it ahead of time of, how do I prepare myself for this? How do I see those opportunities, and then my internal talk track, change that so I'm willing to prepare? Are there any recommendations that you would have to this group, or how does someone prepare themselves to acknowledge it, recognize it, and then jump in?
Great question. And this is going to go, and I know we'll talk about networking and relationships. Phone a friend. It's the best thing you can do, because no matter how self-empowered you are, sometimes you just need to download to somebody and say this and this. It can be your significant other. It can be a girlfriend over a glass of wine. It can be a colleague. It can be whoever makes sense for you that will challenge you, right? I'm going to tell you my story, right? I had a great job at Smarsh, loved my job, loved what I was doing, loved the people. And like I said, I love Portland. And I had just moved into the city, given my car to my son. I was gonna live carless. But I hadn't decided which area I wanted to live in. So I was living in a furnished apartment, and my significant other and I were having a conversation. I had no reason to leave. I had no compelling reason. So I negotiated for like the stars, and I got the moon. I mean, I really negotiated something that was compelling. And so I showed it to him. I was like, dude, like, this is scary. One, it's North Polish, right? Like, and I knew I was signing up for that. So, you know, I went in eyes wide open, but I said, what am I going to do? And I know enough about him that he would challenge me. He goes, if you don't take that offer, I'm breaking up with you because I thought you were smarter than that. Right. So you need somebody that's willing to challenge your thinking. And fortunately, that was him. Right. And we've been long distance for 4 years. Right. And we make it work, and it's great. But if I wouldn't have done that, I would have regretted it. But I had to phone a friend, and I had to phone somebody that would challenge me. First, let me download and say, I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this. And then I always go back to, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen was I didn't love it here. I didn't feel like I was making a contribution. And guess what? There are trains back to Portland. There are planes back to Portland. I have enough contacts there that I could get back there. Right. So scary. Absolutely. Did I cry on the plane when I got on it for the first time? Yes. And I made a friend because I was crying. So I had a friend in Wisconsin, right? Like, I mean, I wasn't sobbing, but it was definitely tearful. I was leaving something. So, you know, don't be afraid to go through the emotion, be vulnerable, know it's risky, and phone a friend. Ask somebody to just challenge the Jesus out of you.
So what I would add to that is, really, you hear people talk about personal advisory boards, right? It's not in general. Oftentimes, I think women, and when you get to a certain age, you don't care. But I'd say early on in a career, it's very easy to want to surround yourself with people that just reinforce your ideas, say, oh, you've got this. But you do need people that I think create some, I want to say critical thinking, but who hold you to the standard that they know you're capable of.
Yeah.
So
confirmation bias is very real, and we seek that out especially when we're frightened. Yeah. Right. And so again, get out of your comfort zone. I know I'm rambling on about being uncomfortable. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. I get that way all the time. Do you think me talking to the chairman of the board about, pitching why security isn't just an insurance policy isn't scary as hell? Yes, but I do it anyway because I believe it, and you guys can believe it.
Yeah. So you touched on a couple things. One is, now that you brought this up, I want to transition to one of the topics that we said we were going to discuss, right? Which has to do with basically your ability to position yourself and your aptitudes. So you mentioned two things: one, talking to the board, and two, negotiating this, I got the moon type of contract. So can you talk about the importance of that in your career? Maybe give some examples of how you either recognize the importance or where you started, for people who may not know what that looks like?
Yes. And so first of all, I'm going to say something that's probably taboo, and it is, and I'm going to say it anyway. Don't be afraid to talk about salary. I think everybody, at least that I know, is like, ooh, we're not allowed to talk about that. And then we have no basis for how we negotiate. What are our skills, right? And I'm going to say a couple of things. One, we're going to talk about networking. I know we're going to make sure we get that in relationships. You get credibility, right? I get calls. Hey, Mandy, so-and-so said 7 degrees of separation, right? Like so-and-so said that they saw you here and we'd really love to have you here. So one, and I know I kind of lost my train of thought. I was definitely stream of consciousness there, Sasha. Bring me back around. Okay, so salary. Don't be afraid to talk to people about it. Ask about the reality. Do the research. I went out and I knew you know, it's not just the security industry. I can go out and get a report on what the average salary of the CISO is, and what bases, what bonuses, what options might be, right? And then there's a whole list of other things you can ask for, right? Like those are not the only things, and they're not the only things that matter. So I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But then you have to think about, how important is this role to that business right now? Because an average is just that. And the average, you know, I looked at a job in San Francisco, and they were offering me about the same as what I'm making in Wisconsin. Compensation was about the same. And I was like, yeah, but to buy a house is going to cost me 3 times as much. I'm living like a queen up here, right, in Wisconsin, on the same type of compensation. So, you know, not everybody will be comfortable talking about it, but, you know, talk to some people, and maybe it's a little bit in generalities, but understand how important it is to the company you're working for, and what skills they're looking for, and what culture. Because ultimately, if they have a culture of security mindedness, and they really want to raise the bar, which is what they were looking for. They were looking for someone that could raise the bar on security, but more than that, they were looking for a change agent, somebody that was confident, that wasn't afraid to speak their mind. Go figure, this wallflower was that. And, you know, I always say that tongue in cheek. So wallflower is my hashtag, right? And that was more important to them, even more so than the data, but they're moving into connectedness and data. And so I knew how important this role was, to take this traditional manufacturer into an ecosystem of connectedness, whether it was smart factory or connected products, or, you know, data center connection, you know, PCI compliance, SWIFT compliance, all those things. So I knew where my value was. And so being a strong communicator, confident, was more important even so than my technical skills. So it's not just the resume piece. And the other piece I'll add to that is, I didn't seek this job out. They sought me out. And the way that we did that is relationships. And it was a relationship from 2 years ago. They said, Mandy, I know last year your kids were graduating high school. You said you weren't relocating. Are you open to that now? I was like, I don't know, depends. And she goes, I found the perfect job for you. They need you there. And so we can talk a lot about relationships, but know that every relationship that you create, and that interaction, hopefully you'll walk away, you know, learning something from me, and creating a connection, and, you know, hopefully having a conversation with someone that might go, you know, we were having a great conversation over a glass of wine in Portland, and they mentioned X, and that sounds like what you need. You would be amazed how often that happens when I name drop other people. I said, I don't know if they're looking, but you might go ask them, just based on a conversation I've had. So I know I put a lot in there, Sasha. So don't be afraid to ask about salary and other benefits, because there's lots of fringe benefits. I could give you a list. They're out there, but I can give you some. And what I did with that was, my boss, I swear to God, I think his mouth dropped like a foot in our second interview right before I left. I said, listen, I know you can't do all of these things, but here's my list, and they're in priority order. So you can pull the levers however you feel like, as long as I get a package that meets this type of compensation. And so I didn't say it must be this salary and this bonus. I said, this is the most important thing to me. At Smarsh, we had take what you need vacation. And knowing a manufacturing company doesn't do that, I had to negotiate more vacation, because I work really hard, but I play really hard, right? I need time away. And so I gave him levers to pull. It wasn't binary. So be flexible, be thoughtful about what's most important to you. Don't be afraid to ask. The worst they can say is, yeah, you've really, and I wasn't asking for something more than what we had talked about in the original compensation. And don't take the first offer. That's the other thing. Never take the first offer. They came back to me with a base that was, I'll say, you know, I wanted to negotiate a little bit higher base. And so I had to do a little bit of negotiation about the value of that. And I know you guys will read that. And, you know, did I get everything I wanted? No, but Kohler was fair and reasonable. And I feel like I got what I needed to make this mutually beneficial, that I could deliver the value that I was asking for, and they were fairly compensating me. So that's the salary piece, right? And the aptitudes, don't just think the technical things. What makes you unique? What makes me unique? And our CEO said it. Mandy is the most gregarious security person I've ever met in my entire life. Right? That's my superpower. Well, people are my superpower, but that's my second superpower, right? It's like, I am a communicator. I am confident. I believe I'm collaborative. I think people are the most important thing. I'm people centric. And that's, it's not the technical security person. Yeah, I need some of that. I need to be able to be credible and know what I'm talking about. But my approach to security is very different. And that's my value. It's not that I can read JavaScript and that I can look at lines of code or that I can go through logs when we have an incident. Can I do those things? Yes. And not as good as the people that work with me, but I have credibility, but that's not my superpower. So what makes you different? So
a couple of quick things. Kristen was kind enough to share a website that she says is a fantastic survey tool. So if you are around salary, so if you're interested, there's a resource that's in the chat. Second, we have not had any questions yet from the audience, and we're coming up on time. So please be thinking about that, because we will be moving into a Q&A in a few minutes.
Yep.
We are trying to cover a lot. So what I would love to do is, I know you take an unconventional approach also to your leadership style, but now I'm getting ahead of myself. I did want to ask a quick follow-up to that, which is, when you tell someone you're a great communicator or a good people person, right? And when we think of cyber, I think we also think of IT, right? Very technical, very engineering heavy. Have you ever had people kind of balk at that?
Yes.
And
all the time.
How do you manage that? Like, how do you help them get the context of what does that mean from a value perspective in their, from an organizational perspective?
So today I'm trying to get you guys all inspired and invigorated. So this is the Mandy's full on, right? If I'm talking to an engineering group, I can't be Mandy full on, right? And my boss said it really well, so I give him complete credit to this. Bring energy with clarity. Don't bring energy with chaos. And so, I'm very energetic and I bring a very different perspective, and I need to know my audience. I need to know when I need to have the data and the metrics. I need to know when they need some abstract reasoning, because that's something that I really bring to them versus just the bits and the bytes, right? Like, let's think beyond the trees. What are we trying to accomplish? What's, where are we headed? And so knowing your audience, and when you do that, when I talk to the chairman of the board, I don't go, oh my God, right? Like, it's okay, calm, collected. And that's part of me too. And so just knowing, we're all a little bit of Sybil, right? We all got a little bit of different personalities depending on the situation. You don't act the same in front of your mother as you do with your best friend out at the bar. I'm sure of it. I know I keep referencing the bar. I love a really good glass of wine. So, respect the differences and know when to bring it. There's a great framework. It's called DISC. And I know Tripwire used it, and it talks, and there's another one, they use colors.
It's lots of
you can use Myers-Briggs. I'm not sure, that's I feel like those kind of put you into a place, but the long and short is, some people, they want to start with hey, how was your day? Some people just want you to get direct and to the point. Some people want everybody to feel good when they walk out, like everybody agrees. And, some people just want to dig into the data. And so you got to know who you're talking to, what you need to be prepared for, and how to energize them, because people's energy is not the same. So I am unconventional, and I don't always get it right. So let's be really clear. I think the other reason that I've thrived here is I'm not afraid to raise my hand and say I've made a mistake. Because I don't always get it right. I get it right. I get it wrong quite a bit. But my vulnerability makes me human. So I don't expect perfection of anyone that I work with. And I'm very people-centric. I had a really rough week 2 weeks ago. And I told my boss, I was like, oh my God, the board deck is due. I have writer's block. I've told them this stuff. And he was like, okay, stop. I was like, I'm just frazzled. And he goes, well, why are you frazzled? And I told him, he goes, I said, people are noticing that I'm frazzled. I don't like that. I want to bring my best self. He goes, well, are you trying to bring your best self? Yes. Okay. If one of your reports was having a rough day, would you be upset with them? No. So give yourself a little grace, right? So again, I have great leadership to model from and hopefully model forward, and some of my own little tricks as well.
So we actually have some questions, and I'm going to start going down because we have about 10 minutes left. So I can do the wrap pretty quickly, but we have a few questions that I definitely want to transition to. So thank you, Michelle. Michelle asked the question, Mandy first, or makes a statement first. Mandy, first, love your energy. Are you able to connect the dots of your proclivity for language to fluency in information security and the ever evolving threat landscape, which is super dynamic?
Absolutely. I think that go Michelle. Seriously, that's a great question, because you're right. I actually speak 3 languages, right? And so I do love language. I love to travel. And I think that wanting to understand and seeking different language. So HTML code is just another language, right? JavaScript is just another language. Like, yeah, I speak Spanish. Yeah, I speak German, and I can read those things, right? So I think that's absolutely true. And the threat landscape is super dynamic, and I think we can talk a lot about it. I could go on for hours about a risk-based approach. I'm a big heat map fan, and really understanding where our top right reds, right, based on probability and impact. I can't do everything. I need hundreds of people. So where are our biggest risks? And yeah, it's never going to be perfect. And yeah, the hacker could still get in. They could get on a low level vulnerability in Microsoft that's showing as, my low greens. But, if I'm addressing these big things, I'm raising the bar. So at least hopefully we're an unattractive target.
Thank you. So we have another question from Elise, who was one of our featured panelists before. And so her question is, how do you navigate the potential tension between cybersecurity, super risk adverse, and a culture that encourages exploration and iteration where mistakes are okay?
Yep. So one of the things that was really important to me in this current transition to Kohler was they're going through a real culture evolution. And our CEO said, what has made us successful the last 150 years isn't going to make us successful for the next 50. And it's just a true statement, right? And it was right for the time, complete deference to the success and recognition that we did what worked. And that was a traditional manufacturing organization with a hierarchical structure, right? That was top down. And now we are working through a culture transition that says, bring your best self to work, bring diversity, bring perspective, collaboration, and bringing people together gets us to the best answer, and empowering people to do what they think is right in the best interest of the company gets us much farther ahead. And not every organization is there, but you can be that voice to start those conversations. For me, I told you I'm a hashtag girl. My favorite hashtag at Kohler is one team, one score. And what that means is if Kohler's not winning, IT's not winning. And if IT's not winning, cybersecurity is not winning. And so I challenge my team all the time to say, when you make a decision, is it in the best interest of Kohler? Does it help Kohler move forward? Because if Kohler's not making revenue, do we have jobs? Right. And so, it's got to be that risk-based approach. And I try not to say no, I say how. And I do have a veto card, and I try to use it as infrequently as possible. I have some non-negotiables, but ultimately, we want to say fail fast. Security should not be punitive ever, right? It's everybody's responsibility, and nobody's going to get in trouble as long as we learn from it. Now, if you're a repeat offender, we're going to have a conversation.
Do you mind sharing your non-negotiables?
No. So non-negotiables. You must have a reasonably length password. You are not allowed to share passwords. And I know I have an analogy, and Okay, I'm going to tell you my really quick analogy. 3 foundational things for security, and this is how I think about it. If I invite someone to my house, right, I decide who goes in and out of my house. Everybody has a key that's allowed access, or I open the door for them. That's access management. Second, if I'm having a dinner party and I let people in, I only want them in my kitchen, or, maybe my living room, but not in my master bedroom. That's network segmentation, making sure that people only have access to what they need. If you do get into my master bedroom and find my diamond earrings, by goodness, I want to know that I want to try to stop you from leaving with my earrings. And if not, I at least want to know what you left with. And that's data protection. If we get those 3 things right, then I think we're doing a pretty darn good job. It's not everything, but I think those 3 things, if we get them right, we've raised that bar pretty high. So a lot of my non-negotiables are around access control, good configuration, not just open ports and open services and open networks. And making sure we know where the data is going.
Awesome. Thank you. We do have another couple of questions really
Love it.
quick. So yeah, I know, I'm excited too. So from Joe, we have, how did you balance your personal life and ascending up your career? And how did you communicate that with your partner, which I think is critical?
Joe, I love your question. So Mandy's going to be a little bit vulnerable. Me and my ex-husband, we're both from the Midwest, and just honestly, my own cultural bias was, we were raised, even though I had a single mom, breadwinning males, females at home. Often I was always told you can go to college, but oftentimes you could go to college and even have a job until you had kids. And then people had to decide, do you go to work? Do you not? Do you stay home with the kids? And, we had those conversations, and much credibility to my ex-husband. He's a great man, great person, great father. And when it really came down to career and family, I was giving as much as I could to my family, and it wasn't enough for him. And we decided that our goals were no longer the same. So I made a really hard decision, right? And it's not the best decision for everyone. Do I think I'm a good mom? Absolutely. Do I think that my kids think I'm an engaged mom when I'm there? Absolutely. Am I always there? No. But you can't be everything to everyone, and we have to live with our choices. Last week, I was here late at work, and I said, what am I doing? I have 10 days until my son's in college. My priorities are not straight. I shut down my computer and went home, right? Because it's the moments that matter. You can't always be there. No one can, right? And you have to learn to, I hated when my mom missed a swim meet, but she was working as a single mom, and I learned from that, right? And so I couldn't always be there, but when I'm there, I'm 100% engaged, and my kids talk about how successful their mom is. And so there's benefit to that. Again, that's not the right choice for everyone. So again, be self-aware, what's most important to you, and make those choices. So I'm being vulnerable. It doesn't always work.
Thank
honestly.
you. I think to your point, it's competing priorities, right? So you have to know what your priorities are, and then you play to those and communicate to the best you can. There's a follow-on question to that, which was also asked, do you think can you share some of the key cyber metrics for the board?
Yes. So one is my heat map. It is my landing page every time, and it's enterprise risk. What keeps me up at night? There are 8 things listed there. Some of them are in top right red, some of them are in yellow. And I say, these are the things that I worry about that I think are still gaps at Kohler. Is it everything? No, but the board doesn't want to know that. They want to know material risks. And then the big thing that I give them, they don't need to see it, but I talk about it. It's a talk track, is we pick the framework. How do you measure success? I highly recommend one tidbit you take. Pick ISO, pick NIST, pick CIS, I don't care. And then pick the controls. Don't do them all. You don't have to do them all. Pick the ones that are the glaring gaps in your organization, and how do you make material improvement to them? We use CIS. I have a metrics dashboard, and I show month over month improvement so that I can show progress.
Awesome. And I appreciate the fact that you, again, express you have to know what you can work on and what you've got the bandwidth for, because otherwise it just becomes overwhelming to everybody. We are almost at time. I do want to ask one question. So I'm going to ask for some grace, because we usually end on time, but I know we've given ourselves a window. Can you please talk about how you support people that might be considering cyber that are not necessarily in the space today, might be considering a transition? And I already know you don't think it's too late ever, but maybe you can give a little bit of a talk track to that, because I think it's an important aspect of what you're doing.
If you can stay. If not, thank you for being here and asking questions. I really appreciate it. My advice is be bold, be courageous. And I know those are big fat words, actionable things. You know, depending on where you are in your career, if you're in IT or somewhere else, how do you become part of an IT project? See if you have an affinity and a proclivity for it. Test the waters. IT would love to have you. We love when marketing comes and helps us, or someone from the business or supply chain is on a project with us and they're interested. So do that, right? If you're looking to make a change, don't think it's too late. I have an intern. She went back. She was a Marine. She did a career and she decided cybersecurity is where she wants. She's interning with us. She's co-oping with us right now. And as soon as we have headcount, we'll probably make her a job offer as soon as she finishes her master in cyber. And, you know, she is around my age, maybe even a little older, younger, beautiful as me. That was just a joke to make you all chuckle at the end. So don't think you can't do it. The other thing, again, who are your advocates at work? They can help put you in places where opportunities might be. Sometimes that's going to mean taking a step back or a lateral move. But for me, I wake up every day excited about what I do. And so as you self-reflect on where you are in your life, if it doesn't bring you joy, is it worth, you know, again, what are your competing priorities? If salary and needing that stability is your priority, great, then maybe being on a project is the right thing. If you're willing to take the leap and take a step back and jump into it, IT and cybersecurity are growing like mad. Data is exploding. There is more opportunity than we can fill, and we can talk about talent shortage another time. But if you want it, I'm going to go back to what my mother always said: you can do anything. And truly, I think you guys can do that if you want to. And I'm happy to answer questions offline if you need to.
So we are over a few minutes. I think we covered everything. Did I miss, Alexis, did I miss anything?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
Did we get all the questions covered?
There was, so there was kind of the second part to the ascending the career ladder. So you did the board one. Sorry, I'm one
That's
behind.
okay. Actually, there's one I did miss, which
the
from
non-technical
Danielle.
skill.
Yeah. What is the best non-technical skill for cybersecurity personnel to have?
Instead of asking to go to a conference or training, ask to go to a speaking class. I did. I had a coach for an additional 8 hours. I went to a 2-day course, and, you know, I was a pretty good speaker before. I think I'm maybe a little above average now in terms of engaging. How do you tell your story arc, and how do you engage an audience? How do you lean in? You know, when is it virtual? When are you in a room? Know your content, all of those things. That takes practice, and a coach can really help you with that. And when you can be very articulate and tell a great story, people want to hear more.
On that note, I am going to close the call because we're over, and we are so grateful that you're willing to give us so much time. So thank you, Mandy. I mean, I would say some of the takeaways I've got, which is don't be afraid, right? What's the worst that can happen? 2 is set expectations, right? I think that was a great reminder. Like, you can control the expectations before you ever enter into these things. It can be part of your negotiation. 3 is, if you're talking, you know, don't be afraid to talk about money, and there's plenty of resources out there for you to get to your bearings, but also understand where your strengths are and be prepared to explain how those apply to any type of job or project or anything else that you basically sign up for. So hopefully you all took a takeaway. We got at least, I think we might have gotten to 5 questions, which was our goal. So that's great. And then real quick on what's coming up for SIM. We basically have our leadership book club. If you're in the Portland area, would love to have you. We also have our scholarship golf tournament, happens once a year on September 15th. And then the next part of this series will be held, we're going to skip a month because there's a lot going on in September. We're going to, on October 19th, be taking on the job market. What is the real story, right? And then if you are looking to make a change, right, how do you start to prepare yourself, where basically the talent pool, right, and is now moved, the pendulum has moved, right? We think, we don't know, but supposedly there'll be more applicants than there will be opportunities. We'll see in October where we really are. So we hope you'll join us for that. And on that note, thank you again, Mandy. Thank you everyone for attending. And I hope you all have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.